most of the kind of common questions that we get are, how do I lose body fat? How do I gain lean muscle?
Didn't really know what any of the numbers meant, so I wasn't really able to interpret what that meant for my performance and whether those numbers were where I should be at, or were they too high, too low, that kind of thing.
Set.
Cheers.
Cheers. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Coffee Talks. If you've been here for a while, you'll know exactly what goes on. But if you're new, first of all, welcome. This is Cara, I'm Michael. We're chatting all things training, nutrition, performance and lifestyle. And today we are getting stuck right into nutrition because that is the one that everybody's been asking about. So we're excited about this one. We're going to take a pretty deep dive into tracking your food, why you should do that, the pros, the cons, our experience, and hopefully everything in between. So let's get stuck in.
But before we do,
let's not get stuck in.
Quick announcement is that we've started something called the Weekly Mainstay. Some of you might have seen it land in your inbox already this week, and if you didn't get it and you feel like you're missing out, the way to get there is to, we'll put the link in the bio.
Link will be in our bio, also underneath the video if you're watching on YouTube. But also you can head to our website, themainstaymovement.co.uk. There you'll find the option to subscribe to the Weekly Mainstay. You'll also find any of our ebooks that we've launched, so Mainstay Meals is available on there. And yeah, there's a few other bits and pieces on there too. So yeah, follow the link or go to the website, leave your email and be part of, I guess, like an inside group.
The Mainstay Movement.
The Mainstay Movement.
Yeah. That's what we're really here for, isn't it?
There we go. So with that said, let's get stuck into today's episode. We're talking tracking food, and the reason we're kind of going straight there is because it's pretty fundamental when it comes to nutrition. So most of the kind of common questions that we get are, how do I lose body fat, how do I gain lean muscle, lots of different,
just what should I eat, how much should I eat, all of that. So with kind of any of these, they are discussions ultimately, and a lot of it is based on our own experience, and we'll probably very rarely tell you definitively whether you should or shouldn't do something. So what we want to kind of do is just paint a picture of our own experience and maybe pros and cons within that, and then you can decide for yourself whether it's something that's relevant for you, rather than just saying, yeah, absolutely everybody should do this. So we'll start off with our own experiences, I suppose. So you want to go first?
Yeah. So I mean, from a coaching kind of perspective, any kind of clients that I've worked with in the past, we obviously we're working together, we're setting goals, and we're aiming for a specific target. So I think, from my perspective from coaching, one of the first things I will get clients to do is keep a food diary. And the reason we do that is because, if you don't track it, it's really hard to manage. And that goes for anything, whether it's nutrition, training, it goes across every sphere of life, business, everything. So if you don't track what you're doing day to day, how can we make reasonable adjustments? So from my point of view, and I suppose I'm taking it from the kind of coaching stance, for me working with clients, it's the best way for me to see what people are consuming, and it kind of also, it's a good way for clients to see what they're consuming.
It's a big eye opener at times, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people think they eat a certain way, or think they eat certain volumes of things, or we have this conception of what we're consuming, but when we actually write it down on paper, sometimes those two realities can be very different. So that's kind of one thing I'll do with clients, but also like from my own kind of experience, I tracked food loads in the past. When I was playing rugby competitively, it was always a case of generally tracking food because I needed to put weight on. I was always one of the kind of smaller, lighter players in the team.
Lucky you.
Which yeah, when you're playing rugby, that's not really lucky you, I suppose. So it was always a case of, you know, making sure I was hitting my kind of calories and macros to maintain weight or gain kind of that little bit of weight. But also I've done it on the flip of that as well. In the past I've gone
full bodybuilder.
Yeah, full bodybuilder, gone super heavy, gained a lot of weight, and then tried to just kind of cut body fat. And so for me, tracking my food and my consumption is one of the best ways to manage, I guess, your weight really.
Yeah. So I'm probably coming from a similar point where I've had to do it kind of for performance. To, I guess probably more recently was to cut weight. Whenever I was kind of coming off the back of doing a lot of CrossFit and carrying a lot of extra mass that I didn't need then for football, so I knew that I needed to cut my overall body weight down, but also cut down my body fat percentage. But initially, like prior to that, I'd tracked on and off more just from a guess just being inquisitive and just being interested in actually educating myself and seeing what food is made up of, and just to kind of educate myself a little bit better on what I'm actually consuming and what is contained within the foods that I'm consuming. Because again, you can maybe make the mistake of thinking that you're getting a certain amount of macronutrients and whatever, and then whenever you actually see it on paper, it can be quite eye-opening at times. So I did it kind of just off my own back, basically. Just downloaded MyFitnessPal because I'd heard people talking about it, but didn't really know what any of the numbers meant. So I wasn't really able to interpret what that meant for my performance and whether those numbers were where I should be at, or were they too high, too low, that kind of thing. So then that's where seeking out an actual nutritionist's help to then align with what my goals were as well. So I'd done it just to kind of figure out how to do it and what it all meant, but I couldn't really put all of the pieces together. And it took someone to kind of go, okay, what actually are your goals? Where are you at the minute? Where do we need to get to? And they kind of guide me through that process then.
And interestingly, you mentioned, MyFitnessPal, and there's lots of different kind of apps now and websites and all this sort of thing that kind of tell you based on generally your height, your weight, and your activity level. What you should and shouldn't eat, and it'll give you a definitive number. And I suppose there's a plus and a pro and a con to that. Pro is you can think you're getting exactly what you need, but the reality is, with those kind of apps and websites, sometimes it's a case of it's like a one size fits all. So it's not super accurate. And things like stress and sleep and all that sort of thing isn't really taken into account in those scenarios. So I think it's very easy to almost become obsessed with the numbers that you see on a screen. And so what I would say is take that sort of thing with a pinch of salt, because your app can't read your mind, it can't read your emotion and how you're feeling and all that sort of thing. And
you've got to listen to your body.
Yeah, and that's a massive, listening to your own body is huge. So pros and cons of tracking food, we'll kind of get stuck into those as well. But I suppose, pulling out from what we've both just said, good reasons for tracking food is because you want to make a change in maybe your weight, your aesthetic, how you're performing, and so that's why we track food. So everybody needs a certain amount of calories to function, and then based on your activity level and your goal, that's going to fluctuate for everybody.
Yeah, it can keep you super organized as well. I know that you could, because you can plan ahead with those apps, you can already have inputted like a couple of days or the full week's food. So if you set out at the start of the week, it's really good to align it with like your shopping list, the meals that you're gonna have, because we know that preparing is the ultimate thing when it comes to hitting targets and hitting goals.
Yeah.
And so then that aligns really nicely with that, so that you know, say you go Monday to Wednesday or Monday to Thursday and you know exactly what you're gonna have, then it stops you being led astray. I guess you're already mapping that out at the beginning of the week.
And this is a massive thing for us.
Yeah.
Like writing your menu at the start of the week, writing your shopping list based off the back of your menu is something that you're going to hear us talking about so much.
People are like mind blown that we do
yeah,
that.
Yeah. People for some reason just don't really understand it, but I suppose it's just coming from our background, you know, of like coaching and then also performing. Like, you know, we've kind of tracked our food over time, and so we know, you know, this meal equates to X, Y, and Z, and so that's why we do it. That's why we plan ahead.
And that leads you, I guess, to another pro for it, is that once you kind of get to know the numbers and you know then what works for you, then you don't have to do it constantly.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can keep coming back to if you feel like, okay, I'm starting to plateau or I'm not hitting goals anymore. But it just then means that you have the knowledge and you know what works, and you can just kind of keep going back to that, and it gives you a really good structure and base to work from.
Yeah. And I think as well, like that whole listening to your body thing, like it's interesting when we, you know, certain people will have certain foods or meals that maybe make them feel a bit low or even give you energy, and so it's nice, it's pretty interesting when you write it down. You can kind of also track like how you feel in your mood based off what you've eaten too, because, you know, ultimately we want to feel better and we want to perform better. So those are some interesting points. Cons, I suppose, things that maybe go against tracking your food. Again, I've kind of touched on like that kind of obsessive thing. It can become almost like a limiting factor on your life. Because, you know, if you want to go out at the weekend, or you know, you want to have a beer at the weekend or a couple, like whatever it is, you know, if you're trying to fit that into what an app is telling you or whatever, sometimes that can be quite difficult.
And it can lead to a really unhealthy relationship with food then, because it just all becomes so number focused, and then you're actually not really giving yourself the space to actually just enjoy consuming food. And enjoy food just for what it is and how it improves your mood and all that sort of stuff, because you're just thinking about input, output, this gives me that, and then you don't really end up enjoying it, and then you can feel that you're just becoming restricted, that you can only eat certain things. And I guess that's where the real education side of it is really important. So another con of doing it is maybe doing it when you don't have someone alongside you, or you do it without really knowing why you're doing it, or what you're trying to get to, or you have got a piece of the puzzle, so you kind of get a handle of putting all of your food in, but you don't know where your numbers should be at. Like, where are you at the minute, where do you need to get to, and how do you get there, and how do you get there safely, rather than doing like a massive drastic cut, or, you know, spiking your numbers up really high.
It's interesting. And so I think if that is kind of where maybe you're at, where you don't really have like a real in-depth knowledge of food and nutrition and stuff, because a lot of people don't, like, that's the reality. Doing it alongside a coach is probably a really good idea. Someone who's got the experience of taking people on that journey before, I can give you a bit of a pointer and a kind of guide is a good thing. So I think that is quite a lot so far. I mean, I suppose to kind of bring it all around, for me, tracking food is a really good idea. If you're like an elite performer, it's probably something you're going to do long term, right? But for every day, I guess what I would say is like track at certain times. You know, give it a go, because again, it's really interesting to see, you know, what we think we eat versus what we actually eat. And it just kind of helps align with your training and overall health and stuff. So don't get stressed out about it. Don't get kind of obsessed over it, it's really not worth that much. But it is good to kind of have your finger on the pulse a little bit.
Yeah.
So with all that said, we like to end these with one for the road. It's a little takeaway for you. It's something that you can work on, over the next week or over the next weeks. And we've kind of alluded to it a couple of times, but what is our one for the road today?
Our one for the road today is to just track your food for a week and see whether what you think you're eating aligns with what you're actually eating, and if at the end of that you feel like it's something that you could try and do long term, well then, absolutely would encourage you to do that. If you feel like it's healthy, if you feel like it gives you more structure to your diet, and if it gives you more structure to your week, and then that'll feed into kind of your habits, routines, and then you will hopefully become more organized and more productive within your week.
I love it. So good. As with every week, thank you for watching. If you're watching on Instagram, please share this. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, like the video, leave a comment, ask us questions. We're here to help. So thank you. Have a good week. We'll see you soon.